Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Pallian. I'm the director of Alaskaman, and today I want to talk to you about support and how it pertains specifically to the race in Alaska. We'll go over the other two events, the one in Iceland and Hawaii, on a different webinar. But for today, we're going to try and keep it as short as we can, but go over all necessary things that support and the athletes will know as they work their way from the start to the finish. So let's get started. As you can see, I'm on the extremetries.com website, which is the hub for all three of our events. Once you're here, and I say this with every webinar that I start, but just a reminder, once you're here, that up top, the menu has Alaska, Iceland, and Hawaii, where you can find everything you need for each race. Go to Alaska, and the drop-down menu, you're going to go to where it says support team. Now, I am going over the stuff today, assuming that your support team and you as an athlete, or if you're support listening, then I'm referring to you, that all of you guys know the rules of the event, you know the specifics on schedule of events and all that kind of stuff. So these are really things that just pertain solely to support and how they enhance and how they support the race, whether it's the event itself or the athlete that they're coming with. So first of all, if you're an athlete listening and you don't have support, you're just trying to educate yourself, I would suggest that you secure that really quick. It is mandatory for the event. Support is expected to be at the edge of the water to help you out, get you in transition, help you change because you're going to be cold. It's going to be very hard for you to do that. And we'll go over that more in detail in a minute. But from there, support follows you on the bike to some predetermined spots along the way to offer anything from, if you have mechanical issues, if you need bottles, if you have nutrition, hydration, if you have any medical issues along the way that aren't severe, that they can help you with just small first aid type stuff, or just keeping an eye on you the whole time, making sure everything's okay and everything's running according to plan. So, and there's some specific do's and don'ts and areas you can and can't be on the bike course as support. We'll go over that as well. But then on the run, support needs to be there when you get off the bike at T2, and it's non-mandatory for support to run the first 17 miles of the run course with you. They can, or they don't have to. It's up to the runner. And then at that point, of course, the last 10 miles is the mandatory section of the run course for support to be with you. So as you can see, just in a brief description, it's very essential that support is with you on this event. It's mandatory. If you don't have it, you will not be participating in the event. So make sure you have that. I've listed on this page, as you can see, where it says don't have support. There's clubs and groups here. You can also reach out to anyone you might know in our group, our Facebook group for Alaskaman that's on the Extreme Tries Facebook page, and just ask if they know anyone or if they're willing to help. A lot of them are local Alaskans that would be more than willing to help. Now, keep in mind, if you are asking someone to devote their entire day to helping you, it's only fair that you pay them unless they absolutely want to volunteer their services. Think about if you were to secure support for this event and they didn't live in Alaska, you would have to, for the most part, unless you're real lucky, to find someone that pays their own way. I was lucky enough for my X-Tries that I did. Kevin Galloway, who's now the official coordinator in Alaska this year, he'll be my right-hand man, but I was fortunate enough to have him as my support, not only from a standpoint of his experience and toughness out there, but also he paid his way, which really helped me. But most people are not that fortunate. So most of you are going to be paying for your support. So if you're doing that, just know that you're saving a lot of money if you're hiring someone from Alaska that lives there. So paying them and not expecting them to volunteer to do it just because they're there goes a long way with them. If you're spending $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 to fly support out and take care of their entire trip, throwing $300, $400, $500, whatever it is, towards local support saves you a lot of headache and time and money. Also, there's not as much logistical planning with somebody who lives there if you have to go that route because they live there. They know more about the place than you do. So there's a big advantage to that as well. So my main point is, if you use Alaskan support, unless they are saying they'll do it for free, they don't want your money, please compensate them. It'll also help us grow our pool of local athletes that will support our athletes coming in. So we always want to build that good rapport with them. So as we go down, why we require support, Our other events, we've actually relaxed a little bit on our support being mandatory, at least for some of the areas. And even in an event like Hawaii, we actually don't mandate that you have to have support. That one, it's up to you. Iceland, it's just support on the bike, and then on the run, it's non-mandatory. But for this event, it's all over. The entire event's pretty much mandatory. And the reason for that is because it is a bit more extreme with the animals, the wildlife. The water is colder, potential for it to be a lot rougher. So having someone help you out of that water is key. So keep in mind on the bike, there's no hydration or nutrition stops. And on the run, they're limited to about every 10K or even more. Alaska, they're more than the other events. So having support with you on the bike is really the only way you're going to get hydration or nutrition. Having them with you on the run, they're effectively your mules. And so, if you end up taking longer between 10K stops, or if it's just longer distance and it's not 10K, it's, instead of 6 miles, let's say it's 8 or 9 miles or whatever it is, then having another person with you. Now they're going to have their own stuff. So you have your stuff on you, they have their stuff on you that you replenish at every water stop along the way, but use them as mules. Like I said, they can carry theirs and they can carry maybe another 25, maybe another 50%, maybe 100% more. So for both of you, especially you, if you run out. So just an example, when I did Keltman, I planned on being up on the mountaintop area, like, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours or something like that. And I ended up being up there a lot longer. I was completely destroyed. And I actually went through all of the hydration and nutrition that I had. Now, Kevin had extra, so we used that up too. And I think at one point we actually ended up borrowing some from other people or taking those donations. But help each other out there and use your support to carry more than you need, just in case. So the other thing is having support out there just makes it more fun. I mean, you're going to be a little lonely out there as you go along anyway. Hopefully the scenery and where you're at and just the whole magnitude of it helps you through that for sure. But having the ability to share this with somebody, whether it is a local that you get to know and make a new friend, or whether it's a family member or a friend that you bring that you've known a long time, that definitely adds to your day. It makes it a lot more fun as you go along, and it really helps create a bigger memory, in my opinion, fond memory. And then also a lot of our support members from first and second year have come back to participate, or they will participate this year. So we like that the support actually ends up doing the event eventually in a lot of situations. So it helps breed future Alaskaman finishers. So the support responsibilities. And these aren't really in order or anything like that, but driving the athlete around before, during, after the race, carrying the bags, getting stuff for the athlete, and that can really mean anything. Going to packet pickup with the athlete, because that's mandatory. You have to go with them to check in. We worry about our support out there just as much as our athletes, so we want to make sure that you guys are back off the course and that everyone's safe out there, including you. So everyone has to go to the pre-race briefing, helping the athlete in transition before the race starts, helping them set up. Now, our Iceland race, that's actually not allowed. Support is leaned on to set up transition completely for the athlete. The athlete does not go to transition that morning. But with Alaska, it's just like any other race. You're going to show up in transition with your support. They're going to help you set up, get you whatever you need so that the stress level's nice and low. And I mean, hell, they're there anyway, so why not put them to work early? When the athlete gets out of the or is done in transition before the race starts, we bus them down to the swim start. So when you're down at the swim start, you're not going to have your support with you. Support's not allowed down there. Spectators aren't allowed down there. So support will wait by T1 and start working their way down. When they see the flare, the rescue flare, which is how we signalize the start, they'll start walking down to the swim exit. And the swim exit's down a dirt road, a little less than a quarter mile. It's at the foot of a waterfall on a beach. Really freezing cold water there because the waterfall is all the runoff. But at least you get to get out there instead of swim through it like the previous years. So support is going to help the athlete out of the water. Most athletes won't really be able to use their legs, especially with the cold we're expecting this year. So they're really going to lean on you in every aspect of that. You may find yourself supporting a majority of their body weight as they stumble back, getting their legs underneath them and getting the blood moving again and warming up. So I definitely wouldn't help them strip down out of their wetsuit or anything like that. Maybe take the gloves off, keep the booties on. Gloves are not mandatory at all, but the booties are, for the specific reason that a lot of your heat will be lost out of the bottoms of your feet. But also when you're entering and exiting and getting back to transition, it's rocky beaches and dirt roads and stuff. So that's going to make it a lot easier to walk on that stuff. So keep the booties on, keep the wetsuit on. Air temperature that morning will probably be kind of low, so it'll just keep you warm. Remember this year, support. It's your job to help your athlete change. As of now, the athlete is going to have to change under a towel, under a parka, or in the portable restrooms that we have. We do not have a changing area. Now that may change as we get closer. We may put up some tarps or something. But as of now, the police want me to remind everybody that they don't want to write any indecent exposure tickets. So please make sure that your athlete is changing and not getting naked, whatever that means. I used a long parka at my events. I didn't even have to, but I figured I'd kill two birds with one stone. I put a parka on after I took down my wetsuit, at least halfway, and that long, like Speedo or tier swim parka was great. It goes down to, I think, my knees. I zipped it up and I was able to change everything I needed under that because I got an extra large size and I didn't need that big. So that's just one idea. We'll have some portable restrooms there, but just keep in mind that if a lot of people are getting out at the same time, there's going to be a line for those and you don't want to wait and all that. So just make sure that you're covering up. Anyway, so the athletes helped back out of the water by support. Let's go over some of the other responsibilities here, and then we'll get to the back to the day. So once you're going to help them through T1 onto the bike, just anything they need in transition, whether that's changing or hot soup, hot coffee, whatever they want to warm up. Maybe it's just, rubbing their shoulders a little bit, rubbing their back, getting them loosened up. That is what a lot of support does there. And then once they're through T1 and out onto the bike, you guys are responsible for meeting them, getting in your car and meeting them at some of the predetermined locations that you guys have talked about along the way. I'll get to the exact mileage, but let's say 30 through 90 are the miles that you're allowed to support your athlete. So 30 through 90, you guys are going to identify along the way, or not along the way, before you get out there. You're going to identify what areas, what mileage that you want to meet the athlete. So you can do that two ways. You can do it through the mile markers, which are fairly easy to identify out there. They're obviously every mile. Actually, they have them every half mile. But keep in mind, for whatever reason, when they put the highway in, and as they've updated it since, whoever put those mile markers out there on the highway, they are not accurate. They're, I believe, accurate through maybe 20, 25 miles, and then they're off by a half mile, then they get accurate again, then they're off by a mile, and then they get accurate again. So they're all over the place. But even though they're not that accurate for a lot of the course, they are still an identifier out there. So the race uses them, we use them to identify if there's an emergency. So support needs to know that if there is an emergency and you're calling us or you're calling 911, if it's a bad emergency, God forbid, that you're going to identify with them by mile marker. So what might be, hypothetically, what might be mile 30 for the athlete, 30 miles that they've completed since they left transition, that may indeed not be 30 on the mile marker. It might be 29 and a half, might be 30 and a half. So just keep in mind that if you are communicating with your athlete based on the actual mileage of the course versus the mile markers that are out there, you still need to pay attention to what mile markers you're at. Now, like I said, within any point, those are going to be within a mile. So you'll get close enough in most situations if you have to relay location for an emergency. But my suggestion would be to communicate with your athlete in mile markers, not mileage, because it's close. And if you need it, you know it, and you're good. So I'll leave that up to you guys. So you're supporting them on the bike. Now, something that DOT talked to me about last year was that we had some cases where children, although not on the highway technically, they were on the edge of the highway and not back where the cars are parked and the pull-offs and stuff like that. They want me to convey to everyone, support and athletes, that if you have children with you or teenagers, young people, they do not want them right by the edge of the road, and they'd prefer that support's not by the edge of the road either. If you're on a pull-off, guys, the shoulders are usually a little wider on those pull-offs, so you could pull off one of the scenic pull-offs or the restroom pull-offs along the way, and there's a lot of them. So you're not pulling off randomly on the side of the road. You are all the way off the highway on these pull-offs. There are a ton of them. You will never go so far where you're like, oh my gosh, there's no pull-off. What am I doing? I got to support my athlete. You'll never think that once. There are more than you can ever imagine. So you pull your car completely off that, you take the keys out, the car's shut off, and then you support your athlete. Now, if the athlete is planning on making an actual stop, they should pull into that parking lot, just watching out for cars, but they should pull into that so that they're off the road. If they want to roll through and just get a bottle hand up from you, that's fine too. But you need to identify them as they're rolling towards you, and they need to get towards the edge of the shoulder as safely as they can, and you are running alongside them or whatever you're doing for, 20, 30 feet, not quarter mile down the highway, but 20, 30 feet, you're running a little bit, just making sure you can hand it off to them so they don't miss it. But you are on the very edge of the shoulder. You are not running alongside them in the road or anything like that. And this goes without saying, I would think. It's common sense, guys, but every year we have people that are right on the edge of that road. That is a highway that people travel between anywhere from 35 to almost 70 miles an hour, depending where you're at. Now, in the very high miles per hour areas, the speed limit being high, those areas usually have nice big shoulders. So even though the speed limit's high and it's not 70, if the speed limit's in the 50s or 60s, people will go a little faster. But those areas, the shoulder is nice and big. So the athletes are usually so far off the road that even when a car comes by fast, it doesn't really concern them that much. And the areas that you've heard about, or maybe you haven't, but there are areas with very little to no shoulder, and they are fixing that over the next few years, actually. Our entire course should have a shoulder within the next 5 years. But in the meantime, right now, those areas that have little to no shoulder also usually have a very low speed limit. We're talking 20 to 35 miles an hour. But it's still dangerous even at that speed. Bad things can happen. So you got to be aware, not only the athlete, but also the support as you're going through there. We're putting at least 100 more vehicles on the road during this event. And you would think that those vehicles being support are just going to make it safer. But that's not always the case. When you're support, think about all the other athletes, not just yours. When you pass someone, be courteous, go slow, but don't go so slow that you've got flashers on and you're following somebody. It is illegal in this event, and they will give you a massive ticket if the police will, if they see you following any athlete under the speed limit with your flashers on. If it's unsafe to pass them and your speed is lower than the speed limit because they're in front of you and you're waiting for a safe opportunity to pass them to get up to speed, that is one thing. But following them tour style, ready to do a hand up, is completely illegal. You will be DQ'd and ticketed. Do not do that. You cannot follow, and you can only hand them stuff on the stops and way off the side of the road. Okay? So enough said about that. Let me go back up here, guys, on this list. I know you can see my screen. So let's go down through the support rules, and I'll get to the run and stuff like that in a minute. English is required. If you have more than one support and no one speaks English but maybe one person, that's okay, but we need to have at least one support person speak English. Captain is required. If you have more than one, just identify the captain. This person's in charge of making the calls pertaining to the athlete and is probably going to do a majority of the work. The captain should always be the person that's speaking English. But if you only have one person, then everything's solved with that one person. They're the captain. They speak English. They're in charge of everything anyway. Other support members are allowed, but let's not go crazy. Having a support captain and one or two other people are fine, but we don't want, a whole team of support that's 8, 9, 10 people deep, because we have to keep track of support as well as they go on to the run course. So just keep that in mind, guys. Support forms and waivers, we'll have those for you guys. You sign some digitally, but it's required of us by all these parties that we have you sign them in person to paper copies. Support team cars and windshield stickers. You're allowed one support car. If you have a support person or a support team, everyone that is listed as support and in our system needs to be in that support car. You can have one car and that is it. So that's another reason if you have more than 1, 2, 3 support people, it's going to be increasingly more difficult to fit them in a car and have all your stuff you need for the day in that car. You cannot put any support people in any other car. Any other car that you have out there, let's say you have your support team and that's your support car, and then, grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, your kids, your wife, your husband, whatever, are in another car. That car, we can't really stop you from stopping wherever and cheering people on, but if we see that car doing any kind of support whatsoever, then that athlete will be disqualified. Because if we allow that and there's gray area there and we're okay with that, the problem then becomes people push that. And now all of a sudden, instead of 100 support vehicles, we've got 200 or 300 vehicles, half of which aren't registered with us. We don't know what's going on. So support vehicles are registered as such. They're the ones with your athletes in them. They're going to have a support sticker that you get at packet pickup that's going to go on the back of the car. And there'll be a little sticker on the front so we can see from front and back whenever we see the vehicle. And we can identify that. It will have your number on it. And those act as signs to other drivers coming by. They are going to say something to the effect of caution, bikes on the road, race in progress, so that we have a moving brigade of signs as it goes up. So, anyway, no crossing the highway, guys, while you're out there. As far as support, we don't want you parking on one side just because maybe in that specific area at that specific mileage, it's a little easier. If you were to park on the other side, you can get them what they need. No, that is not going to, that you're violating the rules at this race. And there's very few penalties. There's either you're following the rules or you're disqualified because it's a serious environment. It's extreme. I don't want people on the opposite side of the road because it's convenient crossing a highway to get to their athlete, or even worse, the athlete trying to cross lanes of traffic on their bike. So it's always on the northbound lane, the right-hand side as you're driving up, never on the left. The only exception to that as far as crossing traffic would be if you were up waiting for your athlete at one of the predetermined stops, they called you, or it had just been a long time, way, way, way longer than you guys anticipate, and you think something's wrong. Maybe they have a flat that they can't change or whatever, and we don't see them and you haven't seen them. Then get in your car, turn around where it's safe, head back the other way, and come up behind them and pull off the road to help them if need be. In extreme circumstances, do what you can safely to help, okay? Support shirts and wristbands. We're going to have one shirt, one wristband. If you have more than one person on your support team, we just recommend that you get the biggest shirt that will cover the biggest person, because you might have to exchange the shirt from time to time. And the wristband should go on the team captain. So we're going to look for shirt and or wristband to get in to transition. Mainly, really what we're looking for is the shirt. The wristband's another, line of defense. If you're in an area that we don't think you should be in and you flash that wristband, you're probably going to be okay. Look, guys, this is a 100-person event this year. It's not that big. Alaska's huge. In the scheme of things, we're not really going to care that much who's around T1 and T2. We know you guys are going to be very respectful. We are going to watch out to make sure no one's taking anything, obviously, but we're going to trust that you guys are just doing what you should. So know that the main way to get in and out of areas that you maybe shouldn't be is with the shirt. And if for some reason you don't have the shirt on, the wristband will probably do the trick. You are not required to run with the shirt. Your support runner must have the wristband on. So what I would do is, obviously, if you have one support person, they get the shirt, they get the wristband, it's all good. If you have more than one support person, I would give the shirt to whoever is not going to be the runner. I would give the wristband to whoever is going to be your runner. If you have more than one runner, obviously they're not all going to have wristbands. But your main runner, the one that if everybody else drops off along the way, that one needs to have the wristband. Now, if you're worried that that may change throughout the event, then maybe use a safety pin to attach that so you can switch the wristband out as you go along. But your support should have wristband and shirt. Okay, so it has on here during support who's to wear the wristband and the shirt. Pre-race transition should be wearing the shirt. Swim exit wearing the shirt. Transition points wear the shirt. Bike support is only between miles 30 and 85. 30 is after, uh, that is after Moose Pass because that's the tight area in there. And more than likely, we're going to allow the lodge in there like we did last year, but it got a little hairy. So we just want to make sure that the roads are clear because it's earlier this year. They may not have had as much time to sweep the shoulders. If it isn't clear in there and it's not as good, we're not going to allow a pull off in there. It may be 31, 32. We'll let you know. After 85, there's only 28 miles left at that point. There's zero reason that you should need more support. Remember, guys, once you pass Alyeska Highway, which I believe is around mile 90, we want support to turn in. It's effectively an out and back after Alyeska Highway. You're on Seward Highway, you pass Alyeska Highway. Alyeska tees, and you'll go north to get to T2. But the bike shoots past there. It stays on Seward Highway. It goes down, U-turns, and comes back on the path. Then when it's back, it goes up Alyeska Highway. There's zero reason for support to be down there. You should be able to carry enough on your bike where you can handle that last 25 to 30 miles. The main reason, too, is that for you to go down and support, U-turn and come back, it creates congestion with the cars. And if there's some type of backup, you're not getting back in time for your athlete. So after 85, or if you go 75 as your last one, that's fine too. But once you hit 85 as support, you're done. You turn in right away off Alyeska Highway, or turn in off Seward onto Alyeska Highway. You'll turn right. You'll go up. You'll park at T2 and wait for your athlete to complete the last 30 miles. That gives you time to do whatever you need to do. Go to the bathroom, get some food, close your eyes for just a little bit, take a short rest, whatever it is that you need to do, and then prep their gear for when they come in. So that's our way of being safe. It's our way of not congesting the course. So you can pull off at scenic pull-offs, parking lots, parks, campgrounds, small side roads with little to no traffic or low speed limits, and area to do so with shoulders. We already mentioned one per car. It must be registered. Sorry, guys, I'm going down this list here, so just making sure I didn't miss anything here. One of the big things is if you come across an area, let's say that you've told your athlete, you guys have discussed it, in let's say mile 45, hypothetically. Let's just say you decided on 45. That's where you're going to be pulled off. So let's say that the pull off there that you have predetermined you're going to go to is full. If it's full, go to the next one. Go to the next one after that. They're not so far apart that all of a sudden, if you had to skip 2 or 3 of them, that you'd be up the road 10, 20 miles. It's not like that. You might be up the road a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles at most. Odds are that your athlete is not going to be able to not finish the event if they have to go up a couple more stops. As an athlete, if you approach a stop that you've determined is the one you're going to stop at and you don't see them there and you're confused, know that they probably, and it looks full, know that they probably went up a couple. If you get there and it's not full and they're not there, keep in mind that they may have been there 30, 40 minutes ago waiting for you, and it may have cleared out since then. So the parking lot being full is not always the factor as to whether or not you can trust that they're up further. Guys, I would just don't be locked into all or nothing on certain stops. Okay. Just go into it with the plan that you're going to roll with it. And if they don't see you, you'll be up as soon as you can, so that they can get their stuff. Never park on the other side of the highway. Never park randomly off the shoulder. I don't care how big the shoulder is. If it's not identified by us or it's not obvious that that is a pull off, you are not permitted to pull off there. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. The closest calls that we have are usually cars pulling in and out of rest stops or scenic pull-offs that are not looking to their right over their shoulder because that's not a lane. They're not remembering that there's athletes on bikes, cyclists, that are on the curb or on the shoulder to their right, and that maybe as they turn or pull out, they're going to hit one of those people. So be aware of that. Not just when you're in your car, but once you pull and you come back out there where you turned in, be aware of it there. Children, pets, anything like that, we recommend not having pets, but again, we can't stop you from putting a pet in your car. Don't let the children or pets randomly roam around, guys. They're going to get hit by cars. They're going to trip up athletes. It's going to be a nightmare. So just be aware of that. All traffic rules and laws are to be abided by. This is a completely open course, whether that means stoplights, stop signs. All vehicles have to stop. All vehicles have to yield. All vehicles have to obey the rules and laws of the road out there. Same with the athletes. There are no police on this course stopping people, letting athletes through, stopping cars, or whatever. So if you come up to a stop sign or stoplight, you are expected to stop just like you would be on any training ride and obey those rules of the road. Okay. Um, Athletes are not permitted to sit in the support vehicle at any time. Just because, guys, we can't tell what's going on in there. If someone switched out for you, or if you're riding around or cutting the course, I don't think anyone would, but you never know. So sit outside of the car. You can't change your bikes or tires. We would maybe allow something if you were to get in a bad accident, but you were okay to continue physically. Your bike was okay, but your wheel was all jacked up. Then that might be a circumstance where we'd be okay with it. But do not come to the course with a bunch of extra wheels, all different depths, changing it out as it goes along and the wind changes through the day. That's not how this is going to go. Bring plenty of tires and tubes and all that, but not wheel sets to change out. You're not changing your bike either. Decide whether you want to do a road bike or whether you want to do a tri bike. I would say definitely do the tri bike. The course is not very hard to stay aero in. There are climbs. It is 4,500 or so feet of climbing, maybe just a little more. And there's some big ascents and one huge descent coming down. But for the most part, you should be able to stay aero for a lot of it. It's not something like a Norseman where there's a ton of all these different climbs, 10 or 11 climbs, I think, on that course. And, you're climbing for hours on end and it's winding and all that. It's not really the same. So I would definitely consider a disc. But if you can't bring two wheels with you, I'd err on the side of caution and just maybe bring like a 1080 depth or a 90 depth or something like that and leave the disc at home. If you're a very solid rider, just know that, the disc could probably work okay. It's going to be that front wheel that's really going to matter in wind. So an ideal setup, if you're kind of afraid of the wind, might be a 90 depth in the back and like I don't know, which is, let's say, an 808 in the back and a 202 in the front. You can't go wrong with that. But a 404, 808 type setup, and that refers to zip depth, that would probably be okay. So anyway, back to what we were on. We're on the run course now. So you come in on the run, or on the bike, I'm sorry. Your support's waiting for you. There's a very small, very temporary area set up for T2. We had, I think, 2 bike racks set up there last year. It is not permanent. You can put your bike on that while you change. You go out for your run, and then your support cleans it all up. It is not permanent. We are not watching your bike. We're not responsible for your bike there. It's just basically a changing room type area. If you get out of your clothes and you're going to get naked again, you got to cover up. Restrooms, you can do that in, towels, whatever. So now the difficult thing becomes, what if your support is running with you? Well, if your support's running with you, then you have to pick up all your stuff before you leave. Now, if you have a couple people doing support, one's running and one's staying, that solves the problem. The person staying puts all the stuff away and cleans up all the mess when you leave. They do that right away. We expect nothing to stay there for more than 5 to 10 minutes after you leave to go out on the run. If you're going on the run with your only run support and there's no one left, you both or that support has to pick everything up, take it to the car, clean it up. We don't know how long people are going to be out there. We're spread thin as it is in these extreme environments, so we don't want to have another transition we have to be responsible for. So, all right, you guys get that. So you're going to go out on the run. How this pertains to support on the run is that support is allowed, but it is not mandatory for the first 17 miles. You cannot pick up support along the way. Support either starts it with you or they do not. They cannot run the first little bit, like a couple miles, and as it starts to go into the trails, they veer off and leave you alone. That's not how it works. Decide if they're running with you or they're not. You can have different support run the first 17 and then another support run the next 10. You can have no support run the first 17 and then support run the next 10. Or you can have the same support run the entire marathon, a little over a marathon with you. That's fine. Having support, the same support run the entire marathon with you is very risky, even if they're good runners. There's potential, a lot of potential for tripping and hurting yourself on this course. Not to mention if they're not trained up and living in the mountains and they're not in the best shape probably they've ever been in, there's a high risk for someone doing the whole thing with you, all the same person, that towards the end they may not make it. And if they don't make it, guys, you're not making it either because you have to have support the entire time. Okay. So I would, if it were me, I would either run the first 17 miles by myself, or I would have the first 17 with a different support person than the mandatory 10 miles that I have to have another support person. So that is up to you. Uh, for support, you're going to bring everything that the athlete would have, because at that point you're doing just as much work as them. Make sure you have a Camelback, a fuel belt, something that will help get you through aid station to aid station. Keep in mind that you're going to be carrying probably some of their stuff, maybe their poles, maybe some of their hydration and nutrition in addition to your own. So really train up to be nice and strong. Speed matters less out there than strength on something like this. So stair climbers, elevated, or the grade on a treadmill being very high. We're talking anywhere from prolonged 4, 5, 6%, all the way up to half or mile stretches that are 8, 9, 10% or more. So yeah, guys, just keep that in mind with your run. We're not, last thing I want to say about this, we're not ditching and picking up people as we go along on the mountain either. If your support cannot make it, your day ends, unless you stay with your support until we get there to help pull your support off, or you come back down with your support and then all of a sudden you're waiting there. You can latch on to another support team if they'll have you, another athlete and their support. But keep in mind, if they're going faster or slower, you have to maintain the pace they're at. If you don't maintain that pace, now all of a sudden you're stopping them from going forward because they cannot just leave you either. So don't be that burden. Make sure you have support. And if you're support, make sure you're training. You have to take this serious. First year, we had quite a few people we had to reassign to other teams because their support died out. Not literally, but you get what I'm saying. So yeah, and there's no driving your car down to cheer people on the paths and stuff like that. You're in T2. You're walking anywhere you want in there if you're spectators, but support, either running or you're not. Okay? And guys, I think that is about it. Let me scroll through here real quick. Just make sure I didn't miss anything. With all these rules and everything, sometimes we lose track of the fact that you guys got to have fun out there. Support's out there so that you guys can enjoy the day together and have fun and create a memory. So, when you're out there, guys, most people aren't fast enough where they're worried about the top 3 male or female spots overall. So take pictures, enjoy your time out there. The other thing is, oh man, guys, I missed one here at the end. I'm sorry. Huh. Anyway, guys, yeah, just keep in mind to look out for each other out there. And I guess that's it. Have a great day. Hey, one thing as I was logging off here, guys, that I remembered the thing I was trying to say, bear spray. So the wildlife out there, you guys are responsible for taking care of yourself, knowing the rules. We have videos on the website. We are going to do a webinar with a wildlife professional from the state national park area up there in the coming weeks. But just keep in mind that we require on the bike the last 30 miles or so. Once the last point you see them is 85 miles. The rider has got to have bear spray at that point. There were a lot of bears spotted on the trail riding the bike in last year. People laughed at me requiring that, but we actually got quite a few sightings. So whether the rider wants to have bear spray the entire time out of T1, that's fine, whatever. But they do have to have it the last time you see them so that they have it on the remaining end part of the bike. And then the athlete has to have bear spray the entire time they're on the run, all 27 plus miles. And anytime the support is out there on the run, whether it's the first 17 or the last 10 or all of it, they have to have it too. If you are on the run course, you have bear spray if you are support or the athlete. Okay. So know how to use the bear spray, watch videos on it. We have those wildlife videos on our site, and just know how to handle wildlife if you encounter it. I will say that you do not know how they're going to react ever. They are wild animals. And if you think that you're not going to see something somewhere, know that I've seen bears in remote places. I've seen bears in driveways digging out of trash cans along a major road. You will see them anywhere. There is no rhyme or reason for where they are. And if they have cubs, they are particularly protective of that. So just know how to handle it. There is no guaranteed protection from anything. Part of signing up for this event is the fact that you are taking the responsibility knowing you are in an extreme environment. And out of all three of our events, the only one where wildlife is an issue is Alaska. We have not, luckily, had any problems. We've had a lot of run-ins. I think last year, 22 bear sightings. A lot of those, I think, were the same bear sighted over and over again. But I would like to think that a lot of the reason we haven't had any very severe cases beyond luck is that our athletes are educated. They know what to do, what not to do, to give themselves the best chance of coming out of it in a favorable way. So be educated, be smart out there, be aware.